All right, looks like everything's live. Let's just take a look around. Hey, we've already got 5 people on channel. Good morning, everybody. I hope you had a good weekend. So, we had a weird weekend here. The best part of the weekend is what we're going to be talking about today, the drone construction progression job 1 year later. So, let's see. Stream's current bit rate is lower than the recommended bit rate. So, it's looking like we're a little slow this morning, so let me check with everyone here. Um, all right, yeah, so it's giving me a little stream warning here. Um, I'm gonna wait and see what folks are saying to me here. So, the bad part of the weekend is actually what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to pull this up since it's giving me a streaming warning that the bit rate's a little low. On Saturday morning, I got up, went to check my emails and things, and nothing was working. So what do? You unplug the router, you unplug the wireless connection, you plug them back in, and hey, no dice. So over the weekend on Saturday, our internet provider, which is now named Sparklight. So we're looking at in the last 24 hours, but Saturday they had a major outage, and that major outage lasted, well, for the entire day basically. So I had some work planned. I had some things to get done on Saturday for a client, and network was not cooperating. We do have our portable hotspots with our Verizon business plan. So I got some work done, but just not what we needed to get done here. So, all right, we got 4 folks on here, and we recommend, you know, yeah, it's still bouncing back and forth on the stream quality is what it's telling me. So, okay, yes, it's okay. Thank you. Thanks for checking that one because it's bouncing back and forth right now. But so over the weekend, complete outage on Saturday. I think the network was restored somewhere like 7 p.m. our time, Mountain Standard Time. But so it really jammed up the weekend. Like I said, we do have alternate connection methods, but then we do have limitations on the bandwidth for that. So I haven't done many live streams off of my Verizon hotspot. We'll have to test one out in the near future. So not HD, but okay. Yeah, when they're done, Charles, when the streams are done, then they process them afterwards, so you can watch them after the stream as well. And then they're usually HD. But yeah, now it's telling me excellent connection. So I guess we're there. But yeah, so Sparklight really hosts us for the weekend, and a lot of the western side of the United States was also a victim of that outage. Apparently, there was a fiber cut at CenturyLink somewhere. I used to work in telecom, and so we had fiber in and out of our mobile switches, and so I'm just trying to figure out who cut the fiber and why. All right, so messes you up for the weekend, but it forces you to take more of a relaxed day. So yesterday was not a relaxed day at all. So let's switch over to this one really quick and let's talk about today's topic. So a drone construction progression job 1 year later. I've been thinking about this and meaning to do a video about this because this job has been an absolute pleasure. The clients are really nice people and they've had an interesting project. So we first were contacted by this property owner last year, I think end of October, right into the start of November. And they are renovating a ranch that they had bought and they wanted to make it into a whole horse ranch. This is going to be their retirement thing. And so they wanted to document it from start to finish. So the owner, JC, had gotten in touch with me and wanted me to come out to the property and meet up and take a look. Property is actually larger than what we documented, so we've only been documenting. Oh, you had an outage too, Corey. For folks new to this, I am always checking the chat stream over on the right-hand side, and then the main window is what you guys are seeing. So when you see me looking over to the right, it's just checking to make sure I don't miss anyone's questions or comments. But so anyways, JC got in touch with us about this time last year. And as a matter of fact, I'm just going to grab, let's see here, time-lapse stills. There we go. So our first visit out to JC's place was actually November 4th. And then we went back out to get a couple more flights in just to give ourselves an idea of the total job site. So we went back out on November 9th of last year. And then yesterday I was out on, what is it, the 14th? Let me see here, the 15th. So 1 year later, we're going to look at some of the things that have happened over that time. We're also going to talk about the fact that the project is behind for them, and there's a lot of good reasons for that, and you're probably aware of some of those good reasons. So this is a shot from over the weekend, by the way. So you can see we've got this round ring in here for the horses. We've got a show area. The new barn is here as well, and there are so many outbuildings. So my client actually called me last week because we've been playing it by ear over the past couple of months because things have slowed down so much. We were doing 1 to 2 flights a month back in the beginning as things were moving along very quickly. So yeah, for a while there, we were having some very consistent regular flights twice a month. And then the summer season hit, issues with contractors, issues with materials, issues with the ongoing pandemic and the unavailability of people to come out and do the job sites. You know, all those things stack up, and suddenly that construction job that you were supposed to be flying for 6 months turns into a construction job that's a year or a year and a half. We've had this with several other clients too. One of the really cool things with this client was that we told them that we were going to be making YouTube videos and also online tutorials about doing construction progression, and he was totally on board and interested in being part of some of our classes and things. Now I want to show you, this was one of the test flights back in January. So we had gone and done some initial mapping out in November, and from November to January things were quiet, you know, the holiday season, right? So we're looking at an unedited shot, just me collecting up the waypoints where I wanted things to, you know, be set in stone that we'd be flying every time. And so you can see here, we don't have that ring, we don't have any of those outbuildings. So it was just the house and just the garage and workshop area there. And all of the other stuff has been developed since then. And yes, so this image was a DNG RAW, and it was edited yesterday just to pick out a couple of images for today's video. So JC had a lot of questions for me back in November. And one of my first questions for him, I went out to check out the property, and one of my first questions was, hey, how did you find us? And he actually found us through our website. So as I've been stressing on previous videos here, your online presence is super important. Now, JC has had a very interesting professional career, so he's looking for people who can really get the job done. And folks doing contracts for him need to be on time and on budget. And so this first flight was actually JC and I plotting out all of the spots that we wanted to get shot for still images. We also did video time lapse for him as well. Now, so I asked him, I said, so how'd you find us? And he said, you know, found you through your website. So let's go ahead and close this. And this is azdrone.net, because .com wasn't available because somebody bought it and they want to resell it for thousands of dollars. So I didn't bother with it. But so in speaking with JC, we had a sit down at his place and I asked him, how did you find us? And he said it was the website. And he had looked through other drone service provider websites, but he felt that we provided more content and more information about the services we do. So it is very important not just to show those amazing images that you're doing for people or those construction sites. You need content behind it, and you need to make sure that when they come look at your website that you have images and videos that you yourself have done. Now, you can utilize other people's images with their permission, of course, if you haven't done certain things, but you do need to start building up that portfolio as soon as possible, because potential customers know when it's your work, and potential customers know when you've got somebody else's B-roll or you're getting somebody else's stills. Because if you live in Arizona and you're showing flights in Florida, most likely you didn't really do a job site over there in Florida, did you? So when they're looking local for somebody to work with, they're going to be looking for local images, local video, local services. So I'm just going into our construction area, and we've got our drones on your job site, which is a video with a lot of the work that we've been doing over the past couple of years. Scrolling down now for drone construction progression, we're actually using JC's property, as an example of some of our construction progression. So he gave us the go-ahead for that, and that's worked out really good for us. And he's enjoyed it as well because he shares these images and videos with his friends and family. We also talk about our progression, two-dimensional before and after sliders. So this one needs to be updated for sure. But in the end, the website is what won the day and what brought JC into us. And there were no other phone calls to any other companies after we first met up. By the way, I'm going to run around the corner here, so I'll be right back in front of the camera. Give me 1 second. I forgot to do one thing for preparation. All right, so for our first sit-down meeting that we had last November, just want to get these up here. So here we are on camera. I got a couple blueprints. I got more than a couple of blueprints. I actually got more content and information from this client than I have from a lot of other clients. So he was at the ready when we had our first sit-down meeting. He had blueprints already made up for whoever he had selected as his drone pilot. So we had the full acreage area, and then we had another one with the area that they were doing the construction work in. So he was completely and totally prepared. When we were done with our first meetup, he pushed the blueprints over to me. He said, those are for you. You take those. So he gave me a lot of opportunities for the planning of our flights and the planning of his project, which was absolutely huge. So this weekend we went back out again. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this one. And so you've seen that image, so I'm going to get rid of that one. And let's go over to Kino really quick. So for those of you new to this channel, Kino is one of the video management tools that I utilize on a regular basis for all my client sites. So if I'm organizing video, I needed something that I really could organize the video with easily so that I could find particular clients quickly when I needed to do work on their stuff. So on the left-hand side of my Kino window, you can see I got a lot of folders. So there's a lot to keep track of on this project and other projects. But this weekend, let's pull this one up and have a little fun while we're talking through it. So we're at a point where his project is nearing completion, but now there's some of the small cleanup items and a couple other items. He gave me a ring last week to say, you know, I'd like you to come back out to do another flight. And he said, because the entire property is all dug up. And the way he made it sound, at first I got nervous for him, thinking that, oh no, there's a problem going on the site. There wasn't a problem going on the site. They just actually were doing a bunch of trench work recently for their water management system for the ranch. So for watering of the ranch area, I guess some watering to the outbuildings for the horses, and to the main barn area. Excuse these quick changes. My apologies. This is the raw, unedited version. I haven't actually started into editing on this particular flight from yesterday, so we got everything offloaded. And there I am with the controller checking back. Actually, Jody's a little further down the driveway, also watching out for the drone. So we've got our visual observer. And you can see this looks a lot different than, let's say, that just those stills. You can see the trench work down here. So JC did want to feature that to show off how they were doing the irrigation and watering system in the area. And so that was the big point of our flight over the weekend. But this location has changed massively, and I'll pull up one of the other videos from January in just a bit. There's Jody coming back, and she's actually jumping over some of this excavation. So some of these areas were very deep. So I do have my eyes on the drone from the driveway there. And we couldn't drive the truck in, so there's the truck right down on the bottom of the bar here. Because of all the ditching they did, all the excavation they did, there's a huge jump here. So he forgot to tell me about that when we were doing the gate code coming in. As you can see, though, we've got a lot of fenced off areas, and what we've been doing with these videos is overlaying them on top of each other as a time-lapse mission. So the final versions that the client sees, we take clips of this from the before and after, and then we've been also peppering things in between. So like the April and May flights and the June flights, and we overlay them together so that they can actually see how much has changed on the property, which is an absolute huge amount of changes on the property. And so as you can see, moving around the backside, we see a dirt road going off in the distance. what we decided on, the final flight paths that JC and I decided on almost a year ago, confines us to only about half the property area because that's where all the changes are going on. The rest of the area is still all the open lands for their horseback riding and the trails and the dirt roads in the area. So this is literally in the middle of nowhere outside of the Prescott area, and it is a long drive out. So like some of the raw land sites that we've been doing recently, this kind of feels like one of the raw land sites, but we are getting to see all of that construction going on, like that new barn right there. Let's fast forward through this real quick just to get around. Off in the distance here, we've got the famous Granite Mountain. So Granite Basin, that is a Forest Service area. So if you want to come out and enjoy hiking and getting some major elevation in your hikes, you might want to come visit Granite Mountain. So, all right, just checking over to make sure no other comments or anything. I'm still seeing some connection issues according to YouTube, so I hope this is coming across for you okay. So let's fast forward that a little more. So we've got the whole new barn in view here, all the trenching that's going on, some of the new outbuildings and the fencing. And what's really nice is the fencing shows up very well in all of this. So it does give the property owner, a great idea of where they've put everything in afterward. We've also documented this in still photos, and we've also made a two-dimensional ortho mosaic, which I'll pull up in just a little while. So you're getting an idea for this one. Let's go ahead and close this one down. We'll stop that, and actually we'll pull up one more, because this was one of the newer setups that we did, because JC wanted some wandering around the property as well. So we've got a couple of different flights that we're setting up, and we're also going to be doing some of the trails later and some of the washes where they're going to be doing their horseback riding. So this one, we started doing this either February or March. This was an additional flight that we added to our original set of recommendations. So by the way, yes, I am going to talk about pricing and stuff. I know everyone always wants to know about that. And so we do a couple of things on the pricing. Our initial setup is always a little more expensive than our regular flights because we're plotting these out and we're setting them up to be flown time and time again. So we're using Ground Station Pro here, and we're using Litchi as well to do our stills and our video, and Ground Station Pros, of course, for our two-dimensional ortho mosaics. So you can see what the place is looking like over the weekend, right? So in our initial discussions with clients, we always do let them know up front that the initial setup and the initial flights are going to cost more than the executed flights afterward. Because once we've got all of our flights set out, then it's us coming out, flying the drone on the autonomous paths, collecting up the same data we collected last time, and then bringing all that back to overlay it together. I've made templates for myself in Final Cut for overlaying the time-lapse work, so that's time saving. And the fact that we're using autonomous drone flight here with Litchi and with Ground Station Pro, we know that our flight paths are going to be executed pretty much the same every time. Sometimes things get bumped around in the wind, and you can notice that in some of the time lapses that we've done over time, that sometimes things are rocking a little bit because the skies are a little breezier than we expected. But this gives you a really good idea of some of the interior and what's going on in this. You can see Jody's actually over here spotting as well. And I'm actually tucked behind here. So we had her up on this side of the building because at this point the drone is not, oh, there I am right. No, that's the light post, but I'm right in here as well. Oh, I'm hiding behind the post. But the drone was out of my visual line of sight for a few moments. So Jody always works around the buildings for me to make sure that it's in her line of sight. So there's a couple of the flights from this weekend, and recently, hey Ray, how are you doing? Good to see you this morning. So I have added a couple of additional flights. We're going to be putting something bigger together as the final video for the clients. But one of the things that I wanted to do is get some orbits around some of this new material. So a few months ago, we added in 2 new little orbits. And so this is going to be the horse showing area. What a property, right? I mean, if you're looking at this too, this is an amazing retirement property for sure. So I can't wait to see the final version, and also when all the horses come in as well. So they're utilizing another ranch in the area for the horses right now. And once all of their construction work is done, they'll move their horses over here. So this is a very simple orbit mission, by the way, using Litchi. And you can use other applications to do orbit missions, or you could do a manual orbit pretty simply. Also, since this is on the Mavic 2 Pro, we could do a nice orbit off of the DJI Go 4 app as well. So this is just trying to give a bigger idea of this whole area was completely treed in previously. So a lot of changes happened for them. Let's go ahead and stop that one. And we'll get over to this last one real quick, and I'll just queue it up because it always has to do its little move around. By the way, also other potential customer opportunities here. The folks who have manufactured this barn for this property do this on a regular basis, so this is part of their business. And my client has shared some of our flights with them, and they do have an interest in documenting some of their own build outs as well. So this can lead into another potential client. Remember, if you're contracting for someone, talking to other contractors on the site is a great way to drum up additional business. I've actually had conversations with the general contractor here, and then a couple of the specific subcontractors have also approached me asking about what we could do for them in showing off some of the work they do. So it's not just about the big contractors, okay? So we've gotten a couple of big contractors over the past year and a half, but even on these smaller job sites, the kind of work we do can appeal to the folks who are actually doing the build-outs to show off the quality of their work, to show off their timeliness and their efficiency as well. So be sure to have conversations with the other folks on your job sites. As a matter of fact, two of the folks that were out here also are drone owners. They were both hobbyists, and they were thinking about doing this work for themselves until they saw the final results of what we've been doing. And they don't know about autonomous flight. They don't know about mapping and modeling. So all these things are extremely new to them, and they're not going to get to showcase their property in a way that they want to. So those conversations have been fantastic, because both the guys I spoke with said, we were thinking about doing this for ourselves, but after we saw you out here for the couple of hours today, we understand there's more behind it. So cards have been exchanged, and phone numbers have been exchanged as well. All right, let's take a look back up to January, and then we can also do a little chat about the pricing here. So is this the right one? Actually, I want January 18th. There we go. And so you've seen some of the newest stuff here. Let's just fast forward this out really quick. And you'll notice there's almost nothing out here off to the right. We don't have a bunch of fencing. We've got one backhoe over here with a couple of trees piled. Overall, though, this construction site looks a lot different than it does months and months later, right? So there we go. So this was the flight after JC and I actually itemized everywhere that we wanted to fly, the things that we wanted to show off and accentuate. And he was very satisfied with the final flight path. And he actually got to look at the final flight path standing with me looking at the iPad. So we were in a shaded area, and we were picking these points together. If you have an opportunity to showcase things for your client and they're willing to come and pick those shots with you, all the better. I encourage it. So as I said, first flight for this particular one, we went out, we had our meeting with JC, and then we went out and documented these. So for the initial setup, we were only documenting 20 acres. And so I decided that this was going to be $500 for the initial setup. And that was based on the time that I was on location. So I was there for about 2.5 hours. And we did burn through a lot of batteries, but we got exactly what the client wanted. The agreement after that, since this isn't the most horribly far drive in the world, we do specify on our website if we're driving more than this distance, then we're charging mileage as well. And in the case of this place, while it's in the middle of nowhere and you're driving off-road a good bit, it's still in a reasonable driving distance for us, so I didn't ding them for the drive time or anything. Given how many flights the client was asking for initially, which we've done more than that now, I decided to price each of the flights at $300 a flight. And the customer, once again, was very happy with that. When you see the kind of things going into the property right now, yes, they can afford it. And they want to document this to show it to friends and family and to reminisce on, going through all of this work they've done. And also, this is being used to check out the progress of things and where the construction crews, are they ahead, are they behind? Once again, some of the issues that came up this year that have come up for a lot of us in a lot of businesses has to be the global health crisis. And at one point, there were several members of one of the crews that were going to be working on the site who were impacted by the virus that shall not be named. And because of that, that pushed them back a good bit. Also, there were material issues where not all the materials were coming in, and part of that issue had to do with the global pandemic as well. So, this documentation of this, of the final build out of this location is really going to show them, where the log jams were when the pandemic was impacting their particular project. And like I said, it's happened to all of us that this has really impacted us. So by the way, this is an unedited clip from way back in January there. But I just wanted to give you all the idea. I mean, in comparison to what we were just looking at from this weekend, let's stop that right there. And let's get ourselves back to the weekend here. And let's get over to rotating around this. All right, a huge and massive difference that's gone on here. So once again, let me step back for a moment. So we did $500 for the initial setup. Going forward on a project like this, I'm thinking more in the $650 to $700 for the layouts we did, because in the end, we've got 2 repeatable flight paths for video. We've added several new orbits that are going to be included in some of the videos, not really part of the time lapse, but just a little bit of the completion and what the staging area looked like beforehand. And then finally, we'll be doing a couple other flights that are outside of our initial one, so we'll be talking about pricing of that independently. Sorry if I'm looking all around too. I moved the camera just a bit as well. So seeing what we've produced for the client, seeing the kind of response and reaction from the client, I know that we could bill a little more for these, but I also do have to keep in mind that this client had no issues whatsoever with saying okay to us using his property for video tutorials, for streams like this and other things. And I gotta give him a little break for that, because they're allowing me to generate other revenue in other directions with the items that I've captured for them, because I'm out there contracting on their behalf, right? And so for them to allow me to, hey, develop another revenue stream, I also had that in the back of my mind as I was pricing this job out. So yes, this job has gotten into the thousands, and for most of the summer we haven't been out there, so those flights were shoved off to the side because of all of the different delays happening. And well, there you go. But next time around, we will be pricing something like this a little higher. Like I said, we also didn't document the entire property, just the areas that were massively changing. And so for a couple of our final flights, I do want to document the full area, and I already know the client has an interest in that as well. And so we'll talk about that, and that'll probably just be an additional small fee. All right, once again, the management area that I've been using for all of this project and a lot of my other projects is Kino. I don't work for them. They're not a sponsor. I am shopping for sponsors for the channel. So if you know anyone or have any suggestions, please let me know, because we'd love to have some sponsorships here. All right, let me close this one up. And actually, I'm going to close Kino here for you, because we're not done talking about some of these things. Let's go ahead and grab Lightroom Classic. So in addition to the video management, we also have still image management as well. And we're just waiting for that to pop up. And of course, it's trying to boot itself on the other screen. How's the audio quality, by the way, everybody? Corey, what do you got for me? I know sometimes you have audio issues. So I've got the gain up, so I haven't heard much on the chat window there. So let's let this one come up here. All right, slow boot up on Lightroom. I think it's coming time for a new machine soon. We'll see. So I put 2 things in a quick collection for you, but I do have all the images in here as well as the images in the client folders as well. And I'll pull those folders back up again just for you to see in just a few once this stuff comes up. So like I said, not only did we plan autonomous flights for video, we also planned autonomous flights for still photos. So we do have a still photo slideshow for the client on the client's webpage where we fade different images in and out. So what you're looking at right now is the flight from January 18th. This is image number 2 in a flight path of 27 images. These are stills that the client and I picked together. And let's go ahead and do an XY here really quick. Let's tab this out. And so there was just a little bit of drift between the two images that I noticed. And so I can align things better afterward. But I just want to take a zoom in here. So the truck was parked out here yesterday because of the giant trenches everywhere. So you can see, yes, in fact, that gate is a little bit off. So we've had a little bit of drift. So that could be our flight. Sometimes it's due to winds. Sometimes it's just a little inaccurate, but you can still align these to show off a before and after. So taking a look at this now, on the left-hand side is the January one. Look at all the scrub out here. There's a ton of juniper, other scrub brush, manzanita out there, and just the plain little metal key code gate. And over here now, we've actually got this concrete area, and we've got our rings and our show areas, and way off in the distance here, there's the house that was already there, and there's, on the January, there's the backhoe that's going to start digging everything up. And from yesterday's flight, we've got the new barn, we've got new fencing, the show area. So huge changes have occurred here without a doubt. And we've got an open garage here and a closed garage here. All right, let's zoom that one back out. But so I just wanted to give you a feel. And like I said, so these are a little off. So I'm going to have to play with these in the slideshow to get the alignment just right. And I'll be able to do it still. We're not going to do that today because then we'd be pulling up Photoshop and doing a lot of other things. But if you'd like to see me do some of these, let me know. Audio is okay, some minor buffering. Okay, so yeah, and the stream is still telling me that it's not fantastic right now. So not quite sure what's up with that. That shouldn't be a residual of what happened this weekend. A fiber cut's a fiber cut. Once they splice it, we should be back and good. But I'll watch the network today. So I'm just going to tab out of that, and I'm going to go up to all photographs here. So not only do I keep the client's images in Lightroom, I keep them in a separate folder for them as well. And that's one of the deliverables we give them after every flight. We give them a Dropbox of all their stuff, but we also create a custom web page each and every flight for the client with the time lapsing going on so that they can see the changes. And then usually the client sends the link out to friends and family so that they can see how the whole ranch project is going. All right, let's get out of this mode and just get back into the normal mode. And lots of other strange images. But let's go over to text here, and we're just going to search on just the November flight. So I have not gone through and finished editing all these yet. We offloaded everything yesterday. And to be honest, we watched a movie for the afternoon because, hey, it's a Sunday, and you got to take a little time off occasionally. But let's take a look through the images just from our most recent flight, which was yesterday. Once again, truck is parked up at front because we couldn't drive over those ditches. And Jody was having some fun jumping over the ditches. So what do you use to align the pics? Okay, so for aligning the still photos, Corey, I'm using Photoshop. So I'll actually take one of the older images and one of the newer images. I align them together. If they are DNGs, you can do an alignment. So one of Photoshop's tools is to align layers. So if I put one layer on top of the other layer, so the January layer on top of the November 2020 layer, I can have Photoshop actually do an automatic alignment if they're pretty close together. And sometimes that works great, but sometimes I end up having to do it manually. So in that case, I'm usually using the free transform tool on Photoshop. So I've got one layer on top of the other. And what I'll do is the top layer, I'll drop the opacity down. So it makes it a little see-through, right? When you drop opacity down, you can see to the layer behind it. And then I'll use the free transform tool to match up some edges and corners. And then I'll crop things accordingly after. So that's how we align everything in for the still images. Now for the video, that's where I'm in Final Cut Pro, and so there's a little more to it than just the alignment sometimes. Sometimes I've got to crop things down a little bit to get them to match up better. But so the stills, pretty easy process. There are other tools out there like Affinity Photo or GIMP. And those things, you can also have multiple layers, and you can do some alignment with those. But for me, I've been using the Lightroom and Photoshop package for quite some time. And I mean, Lightroom I've been using for well over a decade for managing everything. So it's an easy transition at this point. I've been using Photoshop for so long too, that I'm just very used to that. But there are other tools out there for you to use as well. All right, so here we are at the back of the driveway. Let's see. Another teachable class project. Yeah, that could be. I do some of the projects here online for folks too, but that would be an interesting one. There's a lot of stuff out there for Photoshop, so I've always kind of stayed away from a Photoshop tutorial because there's so much out there, but maybe a Photoshop for drone pilots could be in the future. So I'm just following along the path. Let me see. My construction progression video was originally for our YouTube presence, but it was also used by the client for fundraising use. Absolutely. See, I mean, once we've done one of these for a client, we have a lot of opportunity to use these, but you do have to have the conversation with your clients, and it's going to depend on your contract as to whether or not they're comfortable with you using their stuff, let's say in social media, because they are paying you to be there. So, with models, when we used to do portrait work, you'd always have to sign model releases so the models understood they got those images, but then you were also utilizing those images in other venues, maybe for advertising, your own business, samples for potential clients to go in your portfolio. You always want to make sure that is clear with the client. So writing those things into your contract is a good idea. So that way, client approves use of images for online courses, for presentations, et cetera, et cetera. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're talking to potential customers as well. All right, so we're just moving through here so we can see all of this new fencing. We can see that new barn out in the distance. And so once again, all of these shots and all of these angles were picked by the client standing side by side with an iPad looking at the screen together. As a matter of fact, if I zoom in here, you can see me, and JC is actually back behind my shadow, I remember, on this one. And we also had one of the construction workers who was checking out what was happening. Or no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking way back in time, but this is where JC and I were. He wasn't here this weekend. My apologies. I'm there, and that's Jody. I know I've got another one with the contractor in there too, though. So, all right, rotating through. So like I said, JC picked these out with us just to get a feel for the whole property. And just an amazing, amazing job. Actually, I was going the wrong way here, so let's move ahead. Sometimes I get distracted. Apologies. But so as you can see, rotating around here, we know exactly where the pens are, where the rings are, where the outbuildings are. And I'm not letting this catch up. So it might look a little fuzzy on the resolution because I'm not giving it a moment. But one of the big things for JC, and I did get a text back from him yesterday after I sent a couple demo images, and he made a couple jokes about gophers. And Jody's first thought on that was Caddyshack. But yeah, the depth of these, they're burying these pretty deep as well, so I found that really interesting. But this is going to give the client a really great image to look back at as the project was coming to a close. This one is a really telling photo for me. I'm really happy that we plotted the flights out the way we did together. And there's another one that just really screams out to me too. You've got beautiful mountains in the background. We've got the whole area, all the amenities for the horses. These horses are going to be just treated amazingly as far as the amount of space they have to wander in here, and then all of the horse trails in the area. Like I said, if you've never been to Prescott and you like horseback riding or mountain biking or rock climbing or anything outdoors, this place is worth a visit. That's why more people are moving here. It's a double-edged sword. Couple of top downs as well. We wanted to show off because this new ringed arena area here is very new from our last flight. You can see the shadowing going on here as well, and then you can see the rest of the fencing. So it looks like most of the fencing has been installed. We did notice more fencing pipes. We're not quite sure what's going on there, but maybe there's a little more that we're missing out on. And this is not one of the best shots, but this is a straight down that we had shot initially when we were doing the planning with the client, You know, we wanted to get that barn in there. We've got the house very well. I wish the workshop, you know, I could move that up a little bit. I could, you know, add one more image to the flights, but then I'm gonna have to remind myself there's 28 instead of 27 for when I'm aligning things. But we just wanted, you know, a direct top down on that building. So we did get it. And as you can see, not all these have been edited yet. So that's the whole set for that. The final thing I wanted to show you on this, so this project has involved time-lapse video, time-lapse still photography, and time-lapse ortho mosaic models. So let's quit Lightroom Classic real quick and just waiting for things. All right, let's go ahead and close this one because I'm about to pull up Metashape here and I don't want to lock up or anything. So Metashape usually doesn't do that to me but when I've got so many programs open, you just don't know. Fundraising. Hey, okay. I was just looking over to see if I missed any other things. So now what we've got up on here, let's see. Okay, open recent, and there it is right there. We'll pop this one open. So I did manage, and I took the time because this is one of the things I always personally want to see. I did run the 2D and 3D model, very low resolution here, okay? But I always like to get those done first because they tell me a lot about our flight. And this particular one is no different. Let's go ahead down to the ortho mosaic and let's take a zoom in here. So one of the things that the client was very interested in was all of that ditching work for the irrigation in the water. And as you can see, as we zoom in here more and more, we've got the ditching going on here, all of the construction vehicles. You can tell it's still not noon yet because we still have some fairly long shadows here. But that's okay. We're not doing any planning off of this or anything. We're just using it to reference to the last one. There's the main barn. You can see all the irrigation in there. So a huge amount has happened between the last flight and this one for this location. And we can also see all of that fencing. So I'm just going to zoom myself back out. So once Metashape Pro, because I did need to get the 2D ortho mosaics out, Metashape Standard will let you do the 3D models, but it will not let you export those orthos. And speaking of 3D models, let's just go ahead. And remember, this one is not flown for 3D models either. I only did an east-west pass on this. I didn't do a north-south because I was more interested in the two-dimensional model. But still, even though we weren't collecting all the facade data or anything, I think this three-dimensional model is not looking too bad. Of course, we've got the melting walls here that look like ice cream, and you would expect on the south side and north side that the images would not be so good because we were flying east to west and west to east. Still, remember, I did this on very low resolution because the side of the barn's not looking great either. This should look a little better since we were flying east to west. Super windy day. Let's go back and center on that again. Jody was hoping that we'd get something more out of the digital elevation models when it came to the ditches, but we were flying at 200 feet above ground level, so we're not going to get great data into those super dark trench areas, unfortunately. She was hoping to see little blue lines everywhere in here, but it was worth a shot trying out the digital elevation model, just an interesting exercise for us. And by the way, as always, even before you do the texturing on your models, this is the dense cloud. And I do have to say, I enjoy taking a look at the dense cloud because look at all the detail. Even though we're actually looking at a cloud of thousands and thousands and thousands of points, this dense cloud is pretty good. As a matter of fact, it almost looks like those the walls in here should look better. Maybe I need to go back through and redo my mesh and texture at higher levels. So if I were to go in here and redo the mesh, I had done it at low. Maybe if we did this at high, but once again, I wanted to see the results quickly because I'm impatient when I get back from a flight. So just being honest with myself, I want to see it all. Let's take a look back on over. Visuals are a bit glitchy, but the audio is okay. Okay, thanks for letting me know that, Ray. I'm sorry about that. It's been back and forth. I'm looking over at let me see, the live stream itself and then OBS, and it's in the red right warning again from YouTube. I gotta say, this is really frustrating. You know, after the fiber cut this weekend, this is really frustrating. And I'm still getting the warnings. So following up for those of you who've been on channel here, when Google's done processing this, there should be an HD version of this and it should look okay. So the stream is just not cooperating today. And it's not like you can do a half-baked fiber splice back together. Well, I know that, you know, splicing is a bit of work, but how can we, how can we have disrupted internet service on something that's supposed to be completed? I don't understand it. It's aggravating to me. But oh well. But all right, everybody. So you've gotten the idea. This has been a very long, ongoing project. Let me see. Which one was this? 912. I do not think that that was his. So let's go File, Open. And so you see all the work that's gone on here. We're going to go try. Let's go back to the McRae project. And let's do February. Let's do orthomosaic. And there is the file. So we're going to open up last February. And this should be pretty interesting because we just saw all that ditch work and everything. And now there we go. Oh, look at that. None of that stuff is there. We don't have any fences. We don't have the water lines dug up. We don't have that cool little pen area and that showing area. As a matter of fact, we don't have a barn yet. So this is February of 2020. No barn, just the initial excavation and initial removal of some of the trees and stuff. So we have this entire series available to the client on their private web pages. Each month we give them a private web page where they have the stills, and then they have last month's ortho and the next month's ortho. And as you can tell, I hang on to all this data. So I've gotten some additional external drives over this year for backups, but also for the client data. And we will continue to hang on to client data for at least a year for each of the clients in case they lose track of the data that we've provided to them. And it looks like the stream is back to being better, but I am really sorry about that, everybody. That's so strange. Let's open one more. So you're looking at February. Let's go ahead and take ourselves back and let's take a look. Let's go to August. And there we go. There's the ortho and open that one. Once again, you do not have to use Metashape for this, so it's up to you as to what you're going to do. Oh yeah, this one had a little fun with colorization. I was just playing around a little bit, so I was going with the model non-textured version. But as you can see in this one, and I do have another version of this to client, but you can see in this one that they've roughed things out, but we don't have those big fences or anything in here yet. Oh, we've got some fence poles going on. We don't have that circle area. We're missing a lot of things in this one at the moment. Let's jump to the orthomosaic version. Yeah, so I played with the color a bit on this one for grins and giggles. My apologies. They don't line up perfectly, so I'll have to rerun that one. Let's go ahead and open one more. So that was August. And then as you can see, we hadn't been out since August, and that's, you know, coming in. The whole pandemic thing with one crew not being able to come up. And there we go. Let's go back to November again just to get a look at it. So there's our November again, and you can see all that ditch work and everything. So let me take a look back over, make sure I haven't missed anyone else's questions or comments. And yeah, so if you weren't on the live stream and you weren't able to access the chat window, you can always leave a comment below. And we do take questions, and if we've got enough interest in something like Corey's question, we could spend a little time going through Photoshop and aligning two images. And actually, I think here on YouTube, I do have an aligning a still image with another one. As a matter of fact, I'm sure I do on this channel. So you might want to look up Photoshop alignment, or maybe I can find it myself and leave a link down in the notes below. Well, all right, everyone, thanks for coming in and hanging out for a while today. I hope that wasn't too boring. I wanted to show you through, you know, this is an ongoing project that we thought would be completed a lot sooner. The client is still very happy with the product that we're providing, and things can only go at the pace that they're going at. You know, with everything that's gone on in 2020, delays can be expected. So hopefully 2021 is going to be a more normalized year. And for my client, I hope that this all gets finished in the near future for them so that they can bring their horses in and have fun and go out and ride the trails that they want to in the area. All right, I'm going to close down Metashape Pro. And as always, I hope that everyone here has a great start to the week. I hope this was informative for you. I know that these do tend to go long, but when we're showing you everything, it takes a little while to show you everything. It's a drive out to the, it's an hour drive out to the property. It's an hour drive back from the property. It's hours of editing. All these things come together to make these final projects. And I know folks like to keep the video time down on a lot of YouTube videos. But if you're doing instructionals and tutorials and you're doing something about long scale projects, your video is going to be a little longer in the end. Let's take a look down. Thanks for the video and streams. One question, would you recommend the P4 RTK? You know, if I could get my hands on one, I would take one. I actually, I had a question recently on a project. I did let the potential client know. I said, in order to do this justice for what you're wanting to do, I would recommend that you are doing an RTK unit, because they were getting into the nitty-gritty of a build site. So with that in mind, I would love to get my hands on one of them. The thing is, so here's the big question. Are you having requests for work requiring an RTK setup? That's one of the big questions. When I'm doing the progression work, nobody's looking for measurements or, accuracy to, how many centimeters per pixel. What we're looking at is the changes in the site. Now, if we're starting to do some heavy-duty 3D models for people, or if you're starting to do 2D models where they're thinking that they'd like to take some measurements and have you hand off the data maybe to their survey engineers, maybe to their architects, then absolutely, if you can get a Phantom 4 RTK, that's a great way to go. But if you're going to lay out that kind of capital, make sure that you have a justification for it. It's not that if you build it, they will come. So if you're going to make a heavy-duty investment like that, then I would hope that there's a client off in the wings who's absolutely wanting that now. Otherwise, you've just spent thousands of dollars on a maybe. So in the meantime, like I said, we took a pass on a recent job. Number one, too far outside of the service area. Number two, I gave them some suggestions on other companies that were closer to them, and one that I actually knew does have an RTK setup. So hopefully they've headed over to them and they've got it worked out. And so, by the way, also on our stuff, let me see. Caddyshack still makes me laugh. Yeah, Ray. It was that was Jody's first thought with the trenches, and when the client made the joke about the trenches, Jody's first reaction was, tell him to get Bill Murray. So that was a good one. But yeah, so in answer to that once more, if you have demand from clients on RTK setups, then by all means the expenditure is worth it. If you're building up to that, then I would hold off and build the portfolio that I can. If you got the money to spare, go for it. But in the meantime, what's your current services you're offering now? Are you getting a lot of people asking for those services? And, don't overbuy. And that's been a recommendation of mine on this channel, on all my classes and everywhere. Don't overinvest. I know one person that I've flown with previously who might have gotten ahead of themselves and a little excited, and they have some really high-end drones that they never use. Maybe they'll send me one as a loaner. All right, everyone, have an awesome start to the week. We'll see you again next week. Like I said, I hope this was really helpful. And questions or comments, leave them below. Be sure to like and subscribe. And also, I am trying to grow this channel. So if you know other folks out on YouTube who might have an interest in this channel, please send them on over, and we can grow this channel further together. Also, for the folks on Patreon, there will be a couple of new videos this week, a couple of new beta videos coming up this week for the Post-Part 107 class. And yes, delays. But for the rest of this week, I'm actually going to be working on a web clients project that we were supposed to be driving south for, but we're going to be doing the work from up here because the pandemic numbers in Arizona are going up again. And as a guy who's who's already in one of those worst case scenario deals, I don't want to get exposed to it at all. So we're backing off on our travel schedule, but we should still be able to get 90% of what we need to done from here. All right, have a great week. We'll see you again soon. End the stream.